Hi, Mauro. How are you?
Hello, Francine. I'm well. How about
Good,
you?
good. Thank you for being willing to talk with me. I know it's not easy, but I appreciate your willingness. So why don't we start with the first question? What was your most important goal in bringing the lawsuit against PwC?
My goal was to get reinstated. That was my personal, certainly was my personal most important goal, because auditor is the job that I always love to do, and that's why I believe that my not being an auditor anymore has not happened according to the law, and that's why I brought the lawsuit.
Okay.
That was my personal goal. Certainly publicly, because I obviously decided to speak publicly, to put my name out. My goal for the public is to essentially make people aware of how the system works and what is happening right now between the audit industries, the regulators, government agencies, and how the audit function has been twisted, in my opinion, and it's still being twisted.
It's an interesting point, since there's so much discussion right now between the regulators in the UK, and of course all of the controversy over the regulator here in the US, the PCAOB, with regard to the scandal with one of the big four firms, KPMG, a few years ago. How do you think the regulators have failed you as an auditor, as a professional, and in terms of the efforts you made to try to bring this lawsuit? Have the regulators failed you?
In my opinion, yes, under a number of levels. I believe to this day that I actually need to blame the regulators for as primary responsible for what happened to me personally, because I reported, as now is public document, I reported a number of issues to the SEC, and the SEC, by nature of how they decided to investigate after Dianne Feinstein intervened, the SEC decided to narrow down the investigation to the one job that I was clearly identifiable with by my ex-employer. So I believe that the regulators put them in a position to immediately identify who I was, despite that in my complaint I specifically asked for protection, but they did the exact opposite. And then, yes, I mean, they obviously did not initiate any enforcement action, but they referred my matter to yet another agency, which was the PCAOB, and they are still, to my knowledge, investigating, and I don't know what will happen to that. But I mean, obviously, based on what I read, they have enough money to settle everything, so I don't expect much of that. And certainly then there was also the California Board of Accountancy that, at least they were honest. They told me that it was just too big to be investigated. So they were just waiting for either the trial or the results on another agency's investigation to piggyback on that. So yeah, I believe overall it was dismal what they did.
Mm-hmm. The PCAOB in particular, the awareness that PwC had actually had a request for documents, that the PCAOB had actually opened an investigation and requested documents, came out in the trial. I think you weren't even aware of that with any certainty, right?
So I was not aware that the communication, the request came to them. I was certainly aware that the PCAOB was investigating, because I did not reach out to them, but they reached out to me. Mm-hmm. After the SEC closed the investigation, they reached out to me asking me if I was willing to talk and to give them all the evidence I had. And then obviously, yes, I mean, I had a number of calls with them, but So I was not aware of what the PCAOB did with my ex-employer, but I was certainly aware that they are investigating.
The PwC and their attorneys took sort of the length of time that it took, or that it has taken, or that it is taking for the PCAOB to do anything as a sign that the investigation was closed. We know that there's no formal indication, there's no letter, there was no letter or any kind of communication presented at the trial that said for sure that that was the case. How do you feel? I mean, the SEC took a long time to get through this after your initial report. Now the PCAOB, may be exacerbated by all of the stuff that's happened at the PCAOB, has taken a long time to get through this. When it takes so long to investigate, what do you think is the ultimate impact on the firms, or on, you know, any kind of corrective or remedial action, or definitely on any satisfactory result for someone like you?
I mean, obviously, especially given how much material they have in their possession, at least from what I told them and what I showed them, I understand that it takes time. You know, you could see it both ways. You could say that it takes time because hopefully they're doing a thorough job, which is not, I believe, what the SEC did. But obviously, yes, you need to be patient because, I mean, there is a similar, the comparison that I can draw is, you know, I think I saw a news like a couple of days ago about the Durham report, that it's, you know, still not released. And that also has been, you know, a few years. I mean, these things definitely do take time. And it is at times frustrating for certainly the recipient to have to wait. My hope is that they are looking at it thoroughly, and hopefully something good will come out of it.
So given everything that's happened, and as the story above explains, you lost the lawsuit. The judge ruled in favor of PwC, and given that you had an opportunity to appeal, and yet PwC then presented you with a bill for their costs, a significant bill for their costs, you agreed not to appeal in return for not getting that bill. What, in retrospect, could you have done differently, or what could you tell others in a similar situation to do differently? Maybe do you have a couple of 3 things or whatever that maybe you say, you know, now I know, now I realize, or the lawyers eventually told me maybe I should have done this or that, and maybe I would have had a better, different outcome?
I mean, on the lawsuit specifically, I can't think that I do believe I follow the steps that everybody should follow, because I still did want to give a chance to the internal mechanism of the firm to look into that, because I think if somebody would go immediately external, I think would suggest an animus that I frankly did not and do not have. And so I wanted to try to follow all the process. So for the lawsuit itself, to me, was just a matter of balance of power and money. They clearly had, you know, an army of attorneys, good ones too. So I think that is what, in my mind, that is what drove the decision, not the facts. And so to, you know, whoever wants to engage in a similar journey, my advice probably would be about what behavior that you could do internally. Certainly one error that I did was thinking that, you know, HR department was there to assist me. And that was a mistake that I learned. So I would advise certainly people not to believe that HR department is there for them. They are there to protect the leadership of the firm, at least in my case, was evident. And second, at least given my my experience, I trusted people that were in a position of leadership to confide in them, to also ask for advice. And that was also another mistake, because at the end, as I believe it has been shown at trial, possibly they were seeing me as a auditee or as someone to be watched versus someone that actually had a point. So to trust less, I guess, figures that in principle should be there to help people and employees, but factually they're not, in my honest opinion. So that would be one advice that I would caution anybody to not think that there are allies in this.
It seems that in my experience in working as a journalist with many whistleblowers who want to tell their story, that one of the most difficult things, as you said, is to manage that balance of power, to find good representation, in particular because whistleblowers will often have to do that while they're still employed. They want to remain, continue to be employed, right? So first they have to find an attorney who can file the whistleblower tip on an anonymous basis. And that's someone they can trust and who's qualified and who's going to be competent to follow through. Secondly, if for some reason it doesn't go well and the person gets terminated, then you have a different set of circumstances and you need to find, competent counsel. And again, it's usually on contingency, right? Because most people don't have the amount of money in order to have an ongoing multi-year. How many years were you basically from the time that you filed the whistleblower tip until when the decision was made? How many years was it?
It's about five years.
So it's a really long time to have an ongoing support of competent legal counsel. So it seems that one of the hardest things for whistleblowers is to find competent legal counsel. Many of the stories I've written about, they've gone through multiple legal counsel, even the successful ones like Anthony Menendez with the Halliburton case ended up representing himself in an appeal. We both are aware of the Disney whistleblower who is, dealt with those challenges. And there are several Tesla whistleblowers who are representing themselves or who've had significant issues in terms of finding competent counsel on an ongoing basis. And so can you think of any way that either government or not-for-profit organizations could support whistleblowers better in this particular arena?
I mean, to give credit, my attorney poured their heart out. I just believe that by pure balance of strength, I mean, they put against us the former Enron prosecutor. So clearly my guess is that would indicate that they were somewhat concerned about the content or the resonance of this matter. And there is no way that anybody can match that. I mean, obviously the difference of money was striking. And I mean, my hope, I've seen it in movies. I don't know how often it happens in reality, but there are, even big firms that support cases pro bono. But short of that, again, I don't know how much even nonprofit association could support, because, as you said, these matters last years, and I don't know how much amount of money was spent on the other side, but certainly I just can't imagine unless, as I said, there is an equal side firm on the other side that does this job pro bono, there is no way that anybody would be able to match that when you have such an imbalance.
It seems kind of a disservice to whistleblowers, in my opinion, to make the laws that say you can be a whistleblower, you can provide the tips, we will, follow through on that, and then to leave whistleblowers sort of hanging with no competent legal support. If the government is going to, legislators are going to make the rules to allow for this kind of a process, they should know that, these people who are going to follow through on this need competent legal support. It's very difficult to go it alone and to follow through on the process by yourself.
It certainly is. In this case, again, I mean, to me, the main flaw was the actual government agencies. At the end of the day, my ex-employer, they did what they had to do, what they thought they had to do to defend themselves. They had, I think, unlimited money. So, and they sure put that to good use. Besides that, yeah, I mean, I don't think that there is a better solution. I struggle even to think about what a law could be to protect them or to somewhat assist them, given how expensive and how time-consuming these matters are. I'm not sure I have a good solution at the moment.
Certainly, having watched the trial, PwC's attorneys used the fact that the SEC did not bring an enforcement action against you in terms of, whether or not your concerns were credible, even though legally that should not have been an issue. Your reasonable belief that they were credible concerns was supposed to be enough, but that unfortunately for your case had probably an impact in terms of, it would have been different probably if the SEC had actually brought an enforcement action. You would have had more to hang your hat on.
I think in the mind of the decision maker, I believe it would have mattered. But you're right. I mean, based on my understanding as well, that was not the bar that was supposed to be held at. And it is certainly unfortunate in that case that the PCAOB has not come out with anything yet, either way.
Okay. We talked a little bit about the appeal and the fact that, at the end of the case, PwC had a right to present you with a bill for costs, et cetera. That's an obvious reason to sort of reconsider maybe making an appeal. And certainly, as you said, maybe they just didn't want to keep the clock running on legal costs either. But was there any other reason why you decided against the appeal in terms of looking forward?
I mean, that was by far the main reason. To me was, I think the English word would be seem like a bit of a shakedown to relinquish rights in exchange of not getting buried with costs that certainly they were able to afford by themselves. But no, that was by far the more significant reason, especially because I had 30 days to try to reach out and to research to file the appeal, and their request came, I think, after 6-7 days. So they obviously did not even want me to explore all the options that I had available. And I did some preliminary research, and I think the way also that the ruling was written, from what I could research in 6 days, I think could have been a bit of an uphill battle, because ultimately it was a person that decided to believe what the other side said more. He didn't say that, everything was trivial or there was clearly nothing. He just said that he believed them more.
Yes, and so then a very difficult thing to appeal on, to question the, or second guess the judge's discretion or his own legal judgment.
Yes, that was my, as I said, short takeaway in the little time that I had, that I was given by them.
So at this point, what's next? What would you like to do? Are you looking at trying to work for another firm? Are you going to take a trip to see your family in Italy, which I would do? What's next for Mauro Botta?
I mean, working for another firm, Big Four, it's always in my mind, because I believe that even at trial, they demonstrated right and left that I was certainly valued there. And I had the technical skills to be able to do that, to do this job. So, and as far as type of job that I love to do, that's the one that I would always love to pursue. Certainly, based on what has been happening since the lawsuit, the possibilities to seek employment outside consulting are still somewhat limited, just because they were factually able to disparage me, and they still are. And so that's something that makes probably my employment difficult for the foreseeable future, especially at my age. It's not that I have, a ton of opportunities. So I haven't really thought about too much what are the plans. I mean, I certainly will continue to enjoy the job that I have now. Somewhat more difficult, I think, for anybody to enjoy a job knowing that, in case they would want to try other professional challenges, the road is still very much blocked in many respects. As far as visiting my family in Italy, I certainly would love to do that. After the pandemic hit, I was not able to go back last year, and I hope to go back this year. There are still some disservices that the Italian consulate is plaguing most of the residents in this area. Like, the passport expired over like a year and a half ago, and there is no availability still. And by comparison, my American passport, I was able to renew it in like 3 weeks, which, from what I read, I think that's one thing that I was lucky. Positive news, yes, because from what I read, these days they don't renew passport that quickly, but at least mine came through. So I would say right now to focus on the job I have, try to do it the best I can, and take a little bit of a break after 6 years of litigation and many more years of internally trying to report that. It has been almost a decade plus of this type of situation, and I think right now I told myself to take a little bit of a break mentally from all of this and try to regroup. But certainly although I was not successful in my personal goal, which was to be rehired, because I said it before and I'll say it again, I have nothing against the firm as the institution. I still have very attached to it. The problem to me are people that are now in leadership of such firm, not the firm. And certainly I will try to continue to advocate for other whistleblowers to help them any way I can with what I experienced. And I will continue to try to hope that eventually regulators and certainly Congress, which to me is the ultimate responsible, finally listen, because as I wrote in my complaint, what I reported, it's not that difficult to find out if somebody really wants to look at it. And it's something that everybody, I believe, after a few years of experience, know what's going on. It's not a secret. As you know, it came out at trial a lot. I like movies, and there was a movie that obviously inspired me. It was called The Untouchables with Sean Connery, Kevin Costner, and there was a scene when they needed to start to investigate Al Capone and to start to sequester all the illegal liquor, etc. And there was a scene that I will always remember that, the first raid that they do is in a normal building, and Kevin Costner asks puzzled Sean Connery, is like, wait, we just walk in. And Sean Connery tells them, the problem is not to know where the booze is if you want to do something about it. And I think it's a perfect analogy. The problem is not to find out what the issues are. I believe everybody knows what the issues are. It's more like, do they want to do something about it? To me, the more interested to act would be minority shareholders for sure. They should be the first one to be interested to know what's going on, because they're not getting favored for sure by this. And so that would be my advice for whoever believes that this should deserve more attention. That should be certainly the class of people that should pay a little more attention.
That's a good point to end. Is there anyone or anything else that you wanted to say? Anyone you wanted to particularly thank for their support during the process? I know that overall that period of time, there were a lot of different groups and institutions. You had a lot of media attention on the case.
Yeah, I mean, certainly I would want to thank, my first thank obviously goes to my attorneys. That's kind of a due, because they, as I said, they poured their heart out for 5-6 years, fighting obviously a big uphill battle. So certainly and they did help to support me in that. My brother certainly supported me. As far as organization, Pogo were the first one that kind of listened to me. Mm-hmm. And it happened by accident. I was not even, it was really an accident, an error made by my congressman. So that's how I ended up talking to Pogo, was by mistake, but it was in that case a lucky mistake. So I certainly am grateful for them to have followed the story. Yourself, certainly. In Europe, I would say the Financial Times, and Germany, there were Petra Blum. She was a reporter in Germany that was very interested. She still is, because of the Wirecard issue, obviously. And then, I certainly am grateful for the few friends that I have actually found out that are real friends in these years, which are, primarily, oddly enough, yes, they were mentioned at trial, my friends at these 2 restaurants in Palo Alto. I'm definitely grateful for their support, because combining that with the pandemic, yes, they helped me stay afloat, and obviously my therapist.
That you, just as a last note, you mentioned this whole trial took place while we were in a pandemic. It was a virtual trial. I think it was the first one in Northern California, in the district court there, on a virtual basis. You did not have a jury trial. You had a trial before a judge. Overall, the best we could do, or would you have, would it have been worthwhile to wait until you could have had a live jury trial? Or that was a cost benefit assessment I remember you doing.
Yes, it was, obviously it's difficult even now with hindsight. This case, I believe, was deeply, and the ruling I believe showed it, was deeply technical. I can't imagine that a jury would have had the patience or a higher degree of understanding that the bench trial would have given, which to me was very low. the degree of understanding that I believe the ruling demonstrated. And so I can't imagine that a jury trial would have made things better. There were other aspects of the proceeding itself that for me obviously was an education. Like, I understand that I guess the justice system is overburdened, but I found very odd that, you know, you were on the clock. Like, we had 20 hours each side present stuff. That was very bizarre to me. I had no idea that those were the rules. And the other advice, I guess, that I could give anybody that would want to start into this journey was to pay a lot more close attention and make sure that everything is fair during discovery. That was, I believe, a crucial stage that, which is before the trial, when you gather deposition and exchange documents. That's an area that I would definitely advise anybody that wants to do this to be very, very much pay very close attention to that phase.
Yes, I wrote about the one aspect where there were some instant messages that you wanted to discover, and PwC just said they don't exist anymore. In defiance of the Sarbanes-Oxley rules, it said that they should be keeping those records for a much longer period. I see that quite a bit in cases where, in particular, a plaintiff, someone bringing a case, is frustrated by a very large organization. We're seeing it now in the Theranos case, but from the opposite direction, where prosecutors have been frustrated by the fact that the company under the direction of Elizabeth Holmes was allegedly destroying documents and systems that could have provided more evidence. Again, it's a very good point that you make, and a good admonishment. Again, another reason why good lawyers who are on it and really is critically important, because you know, the larger the company and the better the attorneys on the other side, the more they're going to try to use procedural you know, situations in order to gain an advantage.
Yeah, and I believe they did that very effectively. So, you know, as I said, credit to them. They clearly were excellent professional attorneys. I can't say much about it. I mean, even if they were technically, you know, factually on the opposing side, can't help but admire professionals that are so good at their job, even if you're on the other side.
Well, thank you, Mauro, for spending this time and for frankly and honestly giving us sort of an understanding of what you went through and what might help others who are going to be doing the same thing or thinking about doing the same thing. It is not an easy road to hoe. And I know that many look to you, and thank you for raising the issues, raising awareness, being public so that these issues actually saw the light of day in a trial, and that evidence lives forever, even if the result is not what you had hoped for on a personal level.
Yes, I would like to close with this note, because your first question was, you know, my goal. Ultimately, for me and for anybody that I think sees something wrong, it's a matter of conscience. So I think I did what I had to do. And even now, despite the results, I don't regret anything about what I've done. And I don't believe anybody that truly believes that something is wrong and decides to speak up, nobody should ever regret to do that. There is a price to pay, but ultimately, you know, it's a matter of conscience. So if you value that, I don't think that anybody should have a choice. They should speak and be glad and proud that they did. And be hopefully as fortunate as you seem to have been with the support in order to deal with the consequences of taking that right action. Yes, there are a lot of groups to support, and certainly that's something that I would encourage anybody else, because a lot of times it does feel very lonely to do this. You're isolated from colleagues and a lot of people that certainly would not want to talk to you. So yeah, seek support wherever you can, because it's a long road and it's not easy.
Thank you.
Thank you.